Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to this Saturday's Walk and Talk. No, I'm not talking about that beautiful boat back there today and the fly fishing I'm going to do later with my buddy Joe at a lake that will remain unknown. Anyways, today I'm going to talk about a question that I get asked about all the time from parents, and that is, when can I introduce my kids to gaming or technology or to cell phones? And it's a tough one because it's a slippery slope. We all know that if you introduce technology too early, it's going to cause massive problems for you down the road. So this is a three-part sort of conversation today. First, I want to address when you can safely introduce technology into your kid's life and show you how that's intertwined with being bored and learning how to be passionate, because they all mix. But anyways, the most important thing that we can do when it comes to our kids is to teach them how to be bored. Not even teach them, but let them be bored. And this is going to be a little bit of a shout out to the Gen Xers out there. So, you know, all you folks that were born in the 70s, 60s, and 70s, that's us. I don't know about you, but I was told hundreds of times I don't know what that is up there. Might be a coyote. I was told by my parents hundreds of times to get outside and go play. And I would respond with, there's nothing to play with. And my dad, and I know you guys have had it the same, would say, go play with sticks and rocks. Go figure it out. So the reason why we want our kids to learn how to be bored and to go outside and play or to figure out what they're doing is because it'll help them discover. So anyone who knows, who has children, starting from an early age, you have to put those little plugs and plug-ins, and you have to pick up every little thing off your floor. They're gonna put whatever shiny object or crumb they find into their mouth. And this is key. So even as babies, our kids are showing us that they're curious and that they're intrinsically motivated, that they want to explore, they want to discover. And what we have to do as parents is we have to encourage that. So the moment they're crawling and they're showing that curiosity, they're telling us something. They're telling us that they're able to discover, that they're able to explore, that they're able to not be bored because they'll find something to do. And somewhere along the way, we as parents started to rob that from our kids, where we started to provide entertainment for them, whether it be plopping them in front of a TV so they can watch Mighty Machines, or The Land Before Time, the dinosaur shows, or Dora the Explorer, or Diego, or Caillou, or we just start playing with them more, which is great. And we want to do that because we always want to interact with our kids, because that attachment and that bond between child and parent is super important to their emotional well-being. However, we also want to acknowledge the fact that the more we allow them to be curious, the more we allow them to explore, the more they're going to develop passions. And so when it comes to developing that intrinsic motivation, we want that to happen. We want to do things with our kids where they have opportunities to explore. And so what happens is as your kids start to explore and they start to discover, as they get older, you're going to start seeing that they're going to develop interests in things. So I'll use my son, for example, and this is probably every little kid known to man. He got into dinosaurs, right? And we started buying dinosaur figurines, and I think Tamara and I might have went to Drumheller twice so that he could learn more about dinosaurs that way. And we encouraged that, which, you know, and I think that actually started because he had this obsession with stuffies. He used to have all these stuffies. It started with Bluey and Scruffy, which are still in his closet. He had all these stuffies, and he would put them into a pillowcase, and every time we'd go for a walk, he wouldn't even have to look in there. He knew how many stuffies were in there because he was passionate about those stuffies. And then it translated into dinosaurs and so forth. And you know, with Evie, it was, you know, I think I've talked about the mermaids. She got into mermaids, and, you know, I used to take my kids swimming all the time to the pool, and she just loved mermaids. She loved being in the water. So one of the things that I ended up doing for Evie is getting her a mermaid tail, which ended up making her an unbelievable butterfly swimmer, which was great because she won a lot of competitions doing that. But again, it was a passion she started to develop. So the point is that as our kids grow and as they get older and as they start to develop, they're going to have curiosities and passions that we need to encourage. And what that does is it allows them to start developing intrinsic motivations for things that they like, right? And these are where the passions come in. And you know, to my chagrin, my kids did not fall in love with fishing. And it sucks for me because they don't come out in the boat with me very often, but you know, it's a passion that I have. The point being though, is it encouraged that creativity and that passion and that curiosity. And when you do that, they're going to be intrinsically motivated to discover those things on their own. So how does this have anything to do with cell phone use or introducing technology? Because people are always asking, at what age should I? Well, I will tell you this, you should not. You should absolutely not introduce technology to your kids until they have a firm grasp of developing passions and having intrinsic motivation. The rule of thumb is you do not introduce technology, any kind of technology, until your kids have harnessed that ability to be passionate about things. And not just one thing. You know, whether it be Lego or coloring or playing with Play-Doh or, you know, Evie wanting the mermaid tail or cruise with dinosaurs or whatever it is, you need to make sure that your kids develop having intrinsic motivation towards a passion over and over and over again. Because once they start developing those passions and they develop those curiosities and they develop that pattern of exploration, technology is not going to matter. It's not going to matter at all to them. And when you do finally introduce it, because let's face it, you're going to have to at some point, because we live in a digital era and it's not going to go away. And a lot of what we do in life revolves around technology. I mean, look at me right now filming a video. And so it's going to come. But you can hold off on introducing that for a long time just to ensure that. Because what happens is when your kids develop that intrinsic motivation and they develop the ability to be passionate about things, they won't want it. It'll be something that's not exciting for them. And so when they finally get to, you know, grade 6, grade 7, and, you know, they're wanting a cell phone because their friends have cell phones or they've buddies' house who have video game systems, you know, it'll be cool for them. It'll be something that they're curious about, but it's not something that they're going to depend on or want because they'll get bored with it. You know, during COVID, I did buy Cruz a Xbox. And you know what? At first he was like, yeah, he got NBA 2K because he was into basketball and he was using it. But he got bored and he ended up being outside shooting hoops instead of playing it on a video game system. So the key is to allow your kids to continue to be bored from when they're little babies, because they're not actually bored, they're curious. And you encourage the curiosity, you encourage the exploration, because the exploration leads to developing passions, and those passions lead to a kid always being curious and able to find something that they're going to be passionate about. And then as they develop that and as they gain that strength, then it's going to be safer to introduce cell phones. And when they're teenagers, I don't know about you, but I don't know how many times as a coach I've barked at kids to put their cell phones away while they're sitting on the bench, you know, unless they're taping. But like, you've got kids who can't even put their phones away during a sporting event, or they can't put their cell phones away when they're interacting one-on-one. And you know, what happens is when you have kids who develop that passion and that explorative nature, they're able to put their cell phones away for hours at a time because they're passionate about whatever they're doing and it doesn't pull them away. So, boredom, exploration, curiosity equals passion, which then gives you an indication of when you can introduce technology. If you introduce technology before kids are passionate, before they have a firm grasp of exploring and being curious, and that becomes their curiosity, you're going to be in a world of hurt. It's going to be hard to break that because they will get obsessed. Technology is designed for kids to get addicted, just like smoking is, just like these vapes are with increase in nicotine. You know, technology is there to make sure kids get a dopamine hit every 5 seconds. They get rewarded every 5 seconds, every 10 seconds. And it becomes addictive because of those external motivators. And that's why it's important to not introduce technology before your kids are intrinsically motivated. And intrinsic motivation is directly tied to exploration, to discovery learning, and curiosity, which is also directly tied to allowing your kids to be bored so they can discover things. Because if they can sit in that boredom, and this is where that whole self-regulation piece comes in from previous videos, where we talk about kids being able to self-assess and realize that they're struggling, they can take some deep breaths, or you can co-regulate and encourage them through their boredom so they can dig into finding something to explore. You know, so if you stay away from technology until those passions develop, you'll be able to safely introduce it at the right time, and they'll be able to manage it. Yes, once they get technology, they're still going to have some addictive issues with it, just like you do, just like I do, but they'll be better at managing it. So, to make a long story short, you introduce technology after your kids develop the ability to be curious, to explore, and to be passionate. And on that note, from Merritt, pre-fishing trip with my buddy Joe, peace out.